Elden Ring is a game that really doesn't require introduction. Millions of people consider it From Software's finest title, and today, my girlfriend Ellie will have 5 hours to start the game for the first time and get as far as she can. She can do anything and go anywhere while I document her journey along the way. Get comfy, and let's find out how she did. Here we are, playing Elden Ring. This is a big one, this is a big game. How do you feel?
Nervous.
This is probably the biggest game we've covered in this series so far. Ellie has played Dark Souls 1 and 3, as well as Bloodborne, but Elden Ring is an entirely different beast. She began by setting up her character, selecting the Vagabond class, and then we were off to get a little lore. Here we learn about the travesty that has faced this world, the lands between. Okay, we got the Dung Eater. Okay, moving on. After that, it was time to jump into the game. Ellie spawned into what appeared to be a small church and began rolling around. After a classic From Software dramatic door opening, she began perusing outside. Ellie was immediately struck by Elden Ring's inclination to provide the player with more information, something she really seemed to like. She ditched her shield, as I'd advised a more evasively focused approach during Dark Souls 3.
I'm gonna make a prediction at the outset here that this will be your favorite From title.
Ooh.
I don't want to be too confident about that, but that's my early prediction.
I like how this looks.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. Whoa. That's crazy.
Quickly, she approached the game's first boss as she tried to decipher the various player messages strewn about. Of course, as is often customary in From titles, there was no expectation that she'd actually be able to defeat it.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh. I wasn't ready. Is this like a trial boss? Can I give it a finger?
Quickly, Ellie was killed, but that was alright. She awoke in a cave, seemingly far lower in elevation than where we'd been previously. Another cutscene shows us being approached by a mysterious woman, and then we're let loose to explore the stranded graveyard.
Okay. Okay. This is what we like to see.
That's right, it's the Cave of Knowledge. This little optional area functions as perhaps the most traditional tutorial of any modern From title. It's been fascinating to see how From's approach to teaching the player has changed over the last decade. Dark Souls, for example, did provide the player with information, but said info was dealt in painfully small breadcrumbs that could be easily missed. Elden Ring provides much more overt instruction that literally pauses the game until the player is ready to proceed. Given the epic scope of this title, this is a welcome change, especially when considering that you can completely skip the area if you already know what you're doing. Further on, Ellie engaged in combat and quickly picked it back up.
Another dude. Hi, buddy. Rip.
It's amazing to see her progression over her time with From games. She immediately locked on, something that had taken her many hours to begin adopting. I also advised her to drop down to a medium load on her body so that she could dodge more effectively.
Man, I love tutorial hole.
Mm-hmm.
She proceeded onward and took down a shield-bearing enemy, one equipped with a bow, and learned the value of sneaking and critical hits. Deeper in the cave, Ellie ran into an issue. She found this crack in this rock but couldn't determine how to get through it. She quickly grew flustered, uncertain how to proceed. What she needed to do was turn left at that opening, but as soon as she saw the opening, her brain assumed that it was the only way to progress. This isn't the first time we've seen her latch onto a figurative dead end like this, but it never ceases to fascinate me each time that it happens.
How do I get in here? How do I get in? Can you cut all of that?
Hey, she made it through, and soon enough arrived at the tutorial boss, the Soldier of Godric. Obviously, this guy isn't very difficult, but does present the hardest challenge thus far. Her second attempt wasn't particularly nuanced, but she got the job done. It wasn't long after this that we ascended from this dank cave into the vast expanses of Elden Ring.
Whoa. I'm strong. This is beautiful. Whoa!
This is where the game really begins. As most of you likely know, Ellie now had the ability to go well, pretty much wherever she wanted. Of course, some areas contain tougher enemies to teach you that you probably shouldn't be there yet, but the level of freedom is extremely high regardless. I imagine this is something that Ellie will absolutely love, as there's really no getting stuck in this game, at least in the traditional sense.
This is so beautiful and peaceful compared to the other games. Like, I feel like I can just run around a bit and get my bearings instead of doing the same path over and over and over again with enemies immediately.
Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of this game, amongst other things.
It wasn't long before she discovered the Church of Ella and another site of grace.
We could fast travel? This is nice. This is really nice.
Oh yeah, baby. Elden Ring fully embraces fast travel, which is a wonderful addition. Not only that, but the game also features a massive quantity of sites of grace. Already, Ellie had found more sites than she did bonfires or lamps in our entire other From episodes. She pressed onward and managed to get herself poisoned. Thankfully, her flasks lasted longer than the poison, and before she could run the risk of dying, she stumbled upon the Stormfoot Catacombs. Elden Ring features dozens of optional side dungeons hidden throughout its world, and this is one of them. They're not overly large in scope, but provide some good combat opportunities and potentially valuable items.
Y'all ain't gonna ambush me. Okay, yeah, they f***ing did. I don't know what the hell that thing is.
Ellie died, but was conveniently brought back to the beginning of the dungeon. Further in, she found some fire, necessitating some sprinting. She actually managed to make it through, but couldn't quite squeak it out again. She made it through on the next go-round and killed some more gargoyle dudes. It's funny that despite exploring Limgrave very thoroughly, I don't even think I ever found this dungeon. It just speaks to the sheer scope of this game, something I love. The fact that Ellie can find something in 90 minutes that I haven't in dozens of hours is just so cool to me. The Stormfoot Catacombs weren't going so well, so Ellie decided to leave.
I just like being outside better than in a dungeon. In a dungeon felt like Dark Souls. Dark and gloomy. Look how beautiful this blue sky is.
She stumbled onto the Tree Sentinel, who quickly asserted his dominance. He's just one of many enemies that can be significantly overleveled relative to the player, despite inhabiting an early area.
These are crazy enemies, wow. I will say that as well. These are so much more unique than just like decrepit guys. Maybe not the bosses of past games, I don't mean that, but like the lay enemies.
Ellie ventured out in this lake area and found some ruins housing a wide array of enemies. A lot of these early guys are really easy, but even weak foes are formidable in large enough quantities. Apparently they weren't plentiful enough here, as she killed them with no problem. There were some stairs leading underground, but after the catacombs, Ellie was hesitant to explore any further.
Oh my gosh, a big daddy tortoise. Is he a boss? Oh, that is a crab, not a tortoise.
As we continued exploring, the day began shifting. She'd gotten pretty far off the beaten path, so to speak, so I wasn't sure how this was gonna go. She eventually made her way down to this southern bridge, but didn't feel ready to take it on, which was probably a good decision.
Whoa. That was really scary. I just jumped out of my skin. Did you see that?
All the way back at the catacombs, Ellie took a different direction. These sites of grace were pointing her in the general direction that would progress the game meaningfully. Soon enough, she arrived at the Gatefront Ruins. This features some of the most condensed combat so far, including one knight that is particularly difficult to kill at such a low level. Thankfully, Ellie had found another site of grace. Wait, oh no, where are you going?
Ah! 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 I don't think I want to do this. Oh. Oh! Oh no, this sucks so much. It was right there.
Well, at least she'd found it. Thankfully, she spawned close by and was able to touch it. This is an important site as it introduces a leveling mechanic. Leveling is something that Ellie only really started to experiment with in Dark Souls 3, but I felt like Elden Ring would be the game in which she would truly begin to derive value from it. As your stats increase, enemies once thought infallible can become laughable. She didn't have runes with which to level up at the moment, but now she could level up at any site of grace. In addition to this, Ellie also acquired her steed that she could use to travel higher and faster than she was able to previously. She set her sights on farming enough runes to level up.
Maybe I'll just kill a few guys and that'll help me get some runes. Whoa, did you hear how he died? Well.
There's that knight I mentioned. She tried them again, but this guy was just too much right now. Thankfully, she found another site of grace and... oh no. Where are you going? I'm not sure what it was about the sites that Ellie wasn't seeing, but I'm sure this issue will fade as she grows more used to what they look like.
Why won't anyone look me in the eye?
Is that Daniel Radcliffe?
Stop pretending you can't see me.
He's just saying the same 6 things, you little NPC. Say something different to help me find you.
This disembodied voice was really pissing her off. She started hitting trees, interrogating goats, and eventually rolling into bushes. Ah, there we go.
He pissed me off because I couldn't see him, but how does someone forget they got turned into a tree? I do not know.
She tried to take down this horseback fellow and died, but upon a rematch she managed to take him down.
Whoa. The saga of crazy sneezing continues.
Happened. I didn't mean to hold it in.
Sadly, his buddy showed up and took revenge. Now that she could level up, Ellie set her sights on farming some runes. As she fought around the gatefront ruins, she stumbled onto the map for this chunk of Limgrave. Elden Ring providing a map is unlike other From titles, but given how massive this game is, it would be kinda crazy not to give the player some kind of guidance. The map isn't very nuanced, so it won't do you much good in dungeons, but that feels apt. It just paints the broad strokes of the world and keeps track of your discovered sites of grace for fast traveling.
No. Why do you have to blow his horn? I didn't mean to drink 2. I thought that was the fight button for a second. I really don't maintain the memory of mechanics for long.
Despite the freedom to go anywhere, Ellie felt like she couldn't until she leveled up. It's true that leveling would help, as it always does, but this area isn't really the best place to do it. Yes, there are a lot of enemies, but the knight in the center killed Ellie every time it came into contact with her.
Why did you do that?
Because I keep thinking that's hit. Keep thinking square means hit.
She found a new site of grace near the ruins, the one that she missed during Hour 2. Not a game changer to find it, but a huge part of making measurable progress in Elden Ring is slowly growing your web of sites. The more you find, the more you're able to quickly fast travel around the map. This encourages adventurous play, as you know you can only get sent back as far as your last site.
Oh. Something I can use, not something to hurt. He's running from me. He's scared of me. I didn't know they could run from you.
Ellie finally accrued enough runes to level up. Obviously, one level won't completely reinvent the experience, but just like with the Sites of Grace, each added level slowly contributes to your overall strength. From titles are about slowly clawing your way forward, making incremental progress. That's the case here in Elden Ring as well, but the added freedom relative to a Dark Souls means greatly reduced time beating your head against the wall. I reminded Ellie that upgrading your weapon is just as important as upgrading your character, so she went back to the Church of Ella to investigate. She upgraded her sword, increasing her damage output.
Gold-tinged excrement?
As hard as these games can be, remembering the core systems always helps to make progress. Ellie stumbled onto another boss, one that she wasn't ready to take on. A number of bosses are just wandering around the open world, but Ellie has learned in other From games that bosses always appear in the exact same place. So when she went back to this bridge, she employed stealth unnecessarily.
Oh, you seem big and scary. Oh my god, I didn't even have time to think.
Ellie was making progress with regard to her level, but had grown stagnant when it came to finding new areas. Thankfully, after some late-hour exploration, she managed to find another site.
Oh, that's a long way down.
It is a long way down.
But, can I make it? I didn't mean to actually do it yet.
Well, that's a no.
See, they're just like me. They're really thinking about, like, can I make that? They do it and die.
Ellie picked back up, trying to figure out a way to drop down below.
I mean, if you can see somewhere that has something, you can go there somehow. There's nowhere that, other than maybe some, like, far off cliff or something. I mean, there's a way to get everywhere that you see.
I think she was so accustomed to the rigidity of past From games that she didn't even know how to handle this level of freedom. The notion that she could truly wander anywhere seemed difficult to process.
Oh,
That was good.
I'm stuck. I'm hitting a wall. What are you doing, buddy? Oh, is that like poisonous? Oh, okay.
Giant enemy crab felled. Soon enough, Ellie stumbled onto another side dungeon, the Limgrave Tunnels. This area features some strange-looking miners that can deal significantly more damage than most of the enemies we've encountered up until now. They also require quite a few hits to kill, at least given Ellie's current level, making them pretty dangerous.
Oh, that's a big, big boy. Go, go. I couldn't get out of the way. He's too big.
Despite that, she figured there was probably something in here worth finding, so she continued to fight her way through. She seemed to be able to handle one at a time, but as is often the case, multiple enemies presented a much firmer challenge.
Oh, see, it has a lag in terms of response.
There is a delay.
I pressed circle twice.
There is a delay.
And I didn't roll back at all.
She delved deeper into the dungeon, barely squeaking by as she killed more miners and dogs. Once she ran out of flasks, she knew she was in trouble. She made the jump onto this path midway down the elevator, which meant that she couldn't get back up or back down. The only way to get through this path was, well, through.
Oh, have I made a bad choice? I'm gonna lose all these runes. Oh, I have so many. Oh, I'm so screwed, Wilson. I knew it.
Unfortunately, dying there meant her runes were pretty much inaccessible, since she'd have to strand herself again to get them back. Instead, she decided to grind in the early sections for a little while to accumulate enough runes to level up, which was a much better plan. Not only was she gaining both tangible and intrinsic experience, but she was also finding more smithing stones. Even though she wasn't venturing too deeply, she was still getting overwhelmed by enemies.
Oh god. I'm in distress. Skip, skip, skip. Hate this part. It's the worst part. I don't want to look at that again.
Regardless, she eventually gained more than enough runes to level up, which she allocated into her strength. After that, it was back out into Limgrave, where she switched to a new sword and leveled it up. Whether she felt it or not, Ellie was getting into the Elden Ring groove, and that's half the battle. She decided to go back to see if she could outrun that big guy next to the Stormfront gate.
Okay. Zigzag. Okay. This is scary. Oh, that took, this is so awful.
Okay, see, that was not so good.
A second trip got us through and up to Stormhill. Ellie picked up a golden seed, which allows you to add another flask to your collection, and outran the enemies. Before we knew it, another sight of grace. She was starting to learn that she truly had freedom, and didn't need to box herself in.
Oh, I can sit.
The way that man is situated makes me very uncomfortable.
It's so predatory. I love the way they roll.
Yeah, I do too.
Roll for
it
me.
really brings me a lot of joy.
Roll for me. Bye.
We began pushing up higher on the hill as Ellie continued to sharpen her combat skills. Instead of continuing up towards the castle, she was instead intrigued by a potential shortcut leading her to venture over to this bridge. It's a bit out of order, if you will, but did lead to another path that seemed to travel on for quite a good distance. Further on, she discovered some wolves that weren't too bad alone, but as you likely know, wolves tend to travel in packs. She took down the first pack, but ran into another one soon after.
Oh, they are, well, did it for me, I guess. Damn! It's okay. I didn't have that many runes.
This time, we headed up toward the castle, which is heavily guarded. A little too heavily. Maybe we ought to give those wolves another try. This time, Ellie did a much better job of backing away to heal when necessary. Despite a couple of very close calls, she asserted herself as the alpha and took them all down.
Whoa. This is beautiful.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Whoa. Whoa. Wow. Wow. Whoa, I didn't even see all of that.
What a world, what a world. I loved seeing how taken Ellie was with it, just as I was when I got there myself. She found another site of grace and was taken to the Round Table Hold. This area functions as a safe zone where you can interact with a variety of NPCs and utilize a blacksmith to upgrade your weapons. You're actually not even allowed to fight in here, which makes it a nice reprieve in a world of near constant danger.
Oh, he's kind of sexy.
She leveled up again and stumbled into an area where combat does appear to be permitted.
Ooh.
What is that? What is that?
Okay, maybe let's not do that again. We traveled back to Liurnia of the Lakes, the new area that Ellie discovered at the end of Hour 4. As if she didn't already have enough to explore, this zone expands the world even more. The amount that she could see at this point is pretty overwhelming, so maybe it's good that she didn't fully grasp the amount of freedom that she truly had. After exploring another church, Ellie began pushing closer to the lake, encountering an outpost of soldiers along the way. They could sustain more damage than the earlier soldiers could, but she still took them down without issue. After that, we found yet another site of grace.
What does increase amount replenished by flask mean? Like when it comes back?
Mm. Wait,
to
what?
me? He said, Wait, what?
Yeah, I don't know what are you talking about.
Since she'd found a sacred tear in that church, she could increase the amount recovered by each flask, which is super helpful. We ventured out into the lake and quickly found these weird crawling guys.
That was too many at once. This was too many at once.
Yes, 2. Okay.
Knocked your mic
Oh,
off.
well, I'm going to defend myself.
She got closer to another section of the map while she was fighting them, but didn't seem to realize that's what those pillars indicate. You certainly don't have to find the map shards, but they go a long way towards assisting navigation. Ellie found the lakeside crystal cave, but it was really dark and scary. After some internal deliberation, she went far enough to at least touch the site of grace, but that was as far as she was willing to go. Back outside, we found a new variety of enemy.
Don't do this shit to me. Do not do this shit to me. Do not do this shit to me.
This was not good.
Don't do this shit.
As Ellie continued exploring, it was time for the viewer question of the week.
Marbly asks, do you ever get bored just sitting and watching? That's a good question. And the answer is no. I would say that I don't ever get bored sitting and watching. Sometimes it is hard to keep my mouth shut when Ellie misses something. It can be difficult to hold my tongue and not be overbearing. As much as I love playing games, equally do I love watching people play them. So I can watch someone play a video game for a really long time, and I don't think I would ever get bored.
If you'd like to hear your question read in a future video, feel free to leave one in the comments of this video. And to hear us answer many more questions in much greater depth, plus a bunch of other bonus content, consider joining the Patreon, which is linked to this video's description. Ellie discovered a poisonous bog, and thanks to a player message, discovered that she could avoid the poison's effects by riding her horse. The escapade led to yet another site of grace. It's pretty amazing to think about how many sites she'd found at this point. Again, the process of finding a bonfire in previous episodes of the show has occasionally been arduous, so to see the rate of progress here was incredibly satisfying. Perhaps more for me than it even was for Ellie.
These are weird looking. What the hell is that?
We found ourselves in the Academy Gate town, a series of buildings that have long since become flooded. It's a super cool area and featured some more of these ET looking dudes, one of my favorite enemies in the game.
Do you, after all this time, do you understand, I mean not understand, but do you feel the value of targeting enemies and locking on them?
100%.
That's good.
Elsewhere, we found some stairs with more knights that seem to lead to something important. Unfortunately, they have fire. She went back again and made some good progress, but bit the dust when she got higher up the stairs.
Well, why don't you give us some closing Elden Ring thoughts?
I think that Elden Ring adds all the stuff that I really needed as a player in those. But man, oh man, it is still so very hard, but I guess that's to be expected.
Elden Ring provided an experience much more conducive to success for Ellie. The freedom and flexibility afforded to her made the journey exponentially more fun. There's no question that the game is still punishing to a degree that few other games attempt, but when the player is provided with enough trust and autonomy, the challenge feels infinitely more manageable. It's safe to say that Ellie will be far more inclined to return to the lands between in the future. I want to issue an extra special thank you to our patrons and channel members who help make this show happen. While we search for another site of grace, why not check out another episode of the show? Let us know if you enjoyed Elden Ring, and maybe we can continue with it in the future. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next week.